The evening had just begun to settle into its calm. Golden quiet when a single trembling voice rose through the open park. So soft, so unexpected, yet powerful enough to stop even the wind for a moment. "Will you be my dance partner?" The words struck the man like a sudden spotlight. He turned sharply, confused, as if they couldn't possibly be meant for him. But there she stood, right in the middle of the old wooden stage in the city park, a tiny black girl, hardly 8 years old with frayed ballet shoes, a pink dress a size too big, and eyes so full of hope they could have lit the entire night. Her small hands were clasped in front of her chest, and her braids danced with the breeze as she waited for him to answer. He blinked, unable to speak at first. "Me?" the man asked, pointing at himself in disbelief. To him, he was invisible. Just a man hidden behind a thick coat, a low hat, and a silence he had carried like armor ever since life broke him. He blended into the shadows, moving through the world without sound, without purpose. No one approached him anymore. No one dared. No one even noticed him. Except this child. She nodded with full certainty, as if choosing him was the most natural thing in the world. Yes. Everyone left the rehearsal already. They said I'm too slow, too clumsy, but I practiced so hard. Her voice wavered, but she forced a tiny smile. "I just need one partner tonight. Just one person to practice with. Please, mister." Her small voice shook something deep inside him, something he thought he had buried forever. The man standing before her was Alexander Grant, one of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the country, a billionaire whose name controlled headlines, companies, and entire industries. But tonight no one recognized him. After the tragic loss of his wife only months ago, Alexander had disappeared from society, hiding away from reporters, meetings, and even friends. He had come to the park seeking silence, seeking a place where memories weren't suffocating him, where the world didn't demand anything from him. Yet here was this little girl, demanding the one thing he was most afraid to give: connection. I think you've mistaken me for someone else," he said gently, his voice rough from lack of use. "I don't dance. Not anymore." The girl scrunched her nose, unconvinced. "That's okay. I can teach you. I'm a very good teacher." She stepped closer with innocent confidence. "My name is Mia. What's yours?" He hesitated. Revealing his real name always changed everything. People stopped acting natural the moment they knew who he was. So he simply said, "Alex." Mia's face brightened instantly. "Alex? That's a cool name." Before he could process what was happening, she reached forward, grabbed his hand, small, warm, glowing with trust, and tugged him toward the stage. "Come on. Hurry before the lights turn off. This is the best time to dance. Nobody's here to judge us." The man allowed himself to be pulled, stunned by the boldness of this tiny child. He had spent months avoiding human touch, avoiding conversations, avoiding anything that reminded him he was alive. But Mia's hand was warm, alive, full of something he hadn't felt in a long time, innocent hope. When they reached the center of the stage, she positioned him awkwardly. Feet like this, hands like this, chin up. She tapped his elbow when he slouched. No sad posture allowed on the dance floor. That's the rule. He almost laughed at that, almost. Mia looked at him with pure seriousness. "Mr. Alex, why were you sitting alone over there?" He looked away, just thinking. "Well," she said softly, "dancing helps you stop thinking." She took a deep breath, stepped back into the soft glow of the old stage lights, and held her hand out toward him like a tiny ballerina, inviting someone to join her world. "Please," she said again, her voice gentle but full of fragile bravery. "Don't let me practice alone tonight." A million reasons to walk away flashed through his mind, but her eyes, those bright, trembling, determined eyes, pulled him toward something he didn't know he needed. He exhaled slowly, and he placed his hand in hers. As Mia led him into their first clumsy circle under the dim park lights, something inside the lonely billionaire shifted. Something small, but life-changing. For the first time in months, he moved not to escape his pain, but to follow a child who believed in him before he believed in himself. Alex had never imagined he would find himself on an old park stage, being coached by a child half his height and 10 times braver than he felt. But here he was, standing stiff and uncertain, while Mia adjusted his posture with tiny, serious hands. Relax your shoulders, she said, gently pressing them down. No, not that much. You look like a sad tree. He blinked in surprise, and a tiny laugh, barely a breath, escaped him. It was the first sound of joy his chest had produced in a very long time, and even he seemed startled by it. Mia stepped back, examining him like a teacher preparing her student for a grand performance. Okay, she declared proudly, now you're ready. Ready. He wasn't ready for anything, not for dancing, not for talking, not for feeling. But Mia didn't give him a choice. She placed one hand on his and one on his arm, copying the steps she had seen in the dance class before the other kids abandoned her. The streetlights around them flickered softly, casting warm circles of gold across the stage. A gentle breeze carried the distant sounds of cars and laughter from the city, but on this small stage, everything felt still, almost sacred. Now follow my feet, Mia instructed. Her feet moved slowly, carefully, right, glide, left, step. Alex tried to copy her, but his movements were heavy, unsure, like a man stepping into a world he didn't belong in. You're doing great, she encouraged, even when he stepped on her shoe by accident. I'm sorry. It's okay, she giggled. Dancers learn by stepping on toes, but if you break my shoe, then you have to buy me new ones, deal? He looked down and noticed for the first time that her shoes were worn, the fabric splitting at the seams, pieces of tape held the sides together, and he wondered how long she had been dancing in them, how many nights she had practiced quietly in this very park. Deal, he whispered, but his voice held something heavier, concern. They continued dancing in slow, uneven circles. Mia hummed softly, as if imagining music only she could hear. And for the first time since his wife's passing, Alex felt his mind drifting away from grief, away from silence, away from loneliness. Something warm pressed against his chest, something fragile but alive. Mia pulled back slightly and studied him. Alex, why do you look sad when you dance? He stiffened. I do. Yeah, like your heart is heavy. She tapped lightly on his chest. Right here. His breath caught. Children had a way of seeing straight through the walls adults built. Mia wasn't trying to pry. She wasn't trying to understand the complicated truth of his grief. She simply noticed the shadow he carried everywhere. Alex tried to smile for her sake. I guess I'm just out of practice. Well, then you need to practice more, she said confidently. Dancing is not about steps. It's about letting your heart talk. He swallowed, remembering the nights his wife Elena used to spin around their living room, pulling him into dances, even when he insisted he was terrible at it. She used to say the same thing. Dance with your heart, Alex, the feet will follow. Mia tugged on his sleeve, snapping him out of the memory. Look at me, she said softly. I promise I'll teach you. But you have to listen when I say don't be sad. Her boldness made something inside him soften. All right, he said quietly. I'll try. She grinned triumphantly. That's the spirit. They tried again, slower this time. She guided him with patience far beyond her age, correcting his steps gently, reminding him when to lift his chin, when to look forward instead of down. After a few minutes, she paused and tilted her head. You know, she said thoughtfully, you don't dance like the other grown-ups. He raised an eyebrow. How do they dance? Like they're rushing, like they want to finish quickly. She shook her head. But you dance like you're trying to remember something. He froze. Trying to remember, or trying not to remember? The truth was tangled somewhere in between. Mia didn't press. She simply offered her hand again. Come on, Alex, let's do it again. And he took her hand, not because he wanted to dance, but because something in that small, determined girl made him feel safe enough to try. For 30 minutes they danced, until the stage lights flickered faintly and the world around them grew quiet. Mia's energy remained bright, but Alex, though tired, felt lighter than he had in months. When they finally stopped, Mia flopped onto the stage floor dramatically. Whew, you're actually not bad, she said with a grin. Alex sat beside her, breathing deeply. You're a very good teacher, he admitted. She beamed. And you're a very good learner. He didn't tell her this, but he knew it clearly. It wasn't the dance he had learned tonight. It was how to feel alive again. The air around the park grew cooler as the evening deepened, But the warmth between Alex and Mia only grew. They had been practicing for nearly an hour now. Slow steps, gentle turns, little mistakes, little laughs. And for the first time since tragedy struck his life, Alex felt a sliver of peace sneaking its way into his chest. Mia stood facing him, hands on her hips, inspecting his posture with exaggerated seriousness. "You're improving," she declared proudly. "See? I told you anyone can dance if they have the right teacher." Alex smiled softly. "I suppose I got lucky meeting you." "You did," she said without hesitation, nodding firmly. "Very lucky." She started giggling at her own confidence, and Alex couldn't help but laugh with her. The sound surprised him. It had been so long since laughter felt natural instead of forced. Then, as she spun around the stage with a carefree swirl, something caught Alex's attention. Every few steps she winced, barely noticeable unless one was paying close attention. Her foot twisted inward slightly, and he saw the worn, ripped ballet shoe stretch uncomfortably. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. Mia stopped dancing mid-step. "Huh?" "Oh, yeah," she shrugged. "My shoes hurt a little." "A little?" He looked down again, tape peeling, fabric torn, the thin sole practically gone. "Mia, those shoes look like they've survived a battle." She giggled. "Kind of. I've had them for 2 years. I'm supposed to have new ones, but they're expensive." "It's okay, though. I don't need fancy stuff to dance." The casual way she said it made Alex's heart twist. 2 years. Most ballet students he had seen at charity events used several pairs a year. "Mia," he said softly, "you dance beautifully." "Really beautifully." She looked at him shyly. "You're just saying that because I'm teaching you." "No," he replied firmly, kneeling slightly so he could look into her eyes. "I'm saying it because you're talented." Mia bit her lip. Unsure, Alex continued, "Do you take lessons?" "Yeah, at the community center," she said. "My teacher says I have potential, but the kids in my class—" Her voice drifted off. "What about them?" he asked gently. "They say I don't belong in ballet. They say I don't look like a ballerina should." She kicked the ground softly. "They don't say it loud, but I hear them whisper." Alex felt anger rise like a tide inside him. Not the loud, explosive kind, but a deep, heavy sadness for a child forced to question her worth. "And what do you think?" he asked. She shrugged with a small, uncertain smile. I love dancing. I don't know if I'm good enough. But when I dance, I feel brave." Her honesty hit him harder than she realized. Brave. Something he hadn't felt in months. He took a slow breath. "Mia, you belong anywhere your heart takes you. And your heart clearly loves to dance." She blinked up at him, stunned for a moment. "No one ever says things like that to me," she whispered. "Well," Alex said, "then someone should have said them earlier." Mia smiled but quickly turned away, embarrassed by the attention. She walked toward the edge of the stage and sat down, letting her feet dangle. She looked small, too small to be carrying such heavy doubts. Alex joined her quietly. "You said you're practicing for something important?" he asked gently. "Oh, yes." Her eyes lit up again. "The school showcase. If I do well, I can win a scholarship to the big dance academy." She spread her arms wide. "It's so fancy. Alex, the studios are huge, the floors are shiny, and they have so many mirrors you can see yourself from every direction. My teacher said if I get in, I might even get to perform on real stages someday." Her excitement melted into a sigh. "But the other girls practicing today, they all left as soon as I arrived." Alex frowned. "Why?" She looked down at her shoes, at her skin, and then at the empty stage. "Because they said I'm too slow, too different, and that the judges won't pick someone like me." Alex felt a sharp pain in his chest. He knew what it was like to be judged, misunderstood, underestimated. But hearing it from a child, one so full of life and potential, broke him in ways he wasn't prepared for. "Look at me, Mia," he said quietly. She raised her eyes. "What they say doesn't matter." His voice was steady, strong. "You're talented. You're determined. And you're more fearless than most adults I know." "Really?" she whispered. "Really," he replied. "And if you want, I'll help you practice." Every day her eyes widened. "For real? You'd do that for me?" "Yes," he said simply, "because you're worth it." The wind rustled through the trees as if agreeing with him. Mia's eyes softened, shining under the street lamp. And in that moment, on a small park stage, with nothing but half-broken shoes and a heart full of dreams, a little girl regained the confidence the world had tried to steal. And a billionaire rediscovered a purpose he didn't know he still had. The night deepened into a soft blue as streetlights flickered awake one by one. The stage lights cast long shadows that stretched across the wooden boards, giving the park an almost magical glow. Mia sat on the edge of the stage, legs dangling while Alex lowered himself beside her. They had danced until their breaths grew heavy and their laughter echoed across the empty park. Now silence wrapped around them, comfortable, peaceful, the kind of silence only true companionship could create. But something about Mia's quietness felt different. She wasn't her usual chatterbox self. She picked at the frayed edges of her ballet shoes, her shoulders tight, her gaze fixed somewhere on the ground. "Mia," Alex said softly, "can I ask you something?" She nodded without looking up. "Why did the other kids leave when you arrived at the rehearsal today?" Her fingers stilled. She swallowed, and for the first time since meeting her, Alex saw fear, the kind children hide deep in their hearts to stay brave. "They don't like dancing with me," she whispered. "Why not?" His voice was gentle, careful. Mia hugged her knees closer. "They say I don't look like a ballerina. They say real ballerinas have long hair that's straight and shiny. And small feet. And perfect skin." She paused, voice cracking. "They say I'm too dark, too slow, too different." A sharp, invisible blade cut through Alex's heart. He had faced battles in boardrooms, betrayals in business, grief in marriage, but nothing felt as heavy as watching a child shrink because the world told her she wasn't good enough. He turned toward her fully. "Mia," he said, "look at me." Slowly, she did. Her eyes shimmered under the streetlight. Heavy with hurt she didn't deserve. "You are strong," he said. "You are talented. You are beautiful. And you belong anywhere. You want to be." Mia's lip trembled. "No one else thinks." Well," Alex said softly, "then they're wrong." She blinked, stunned. You think I can really become a real ballerina someday?" "I don't think it," Alex said, leaning slightly closer. "I know it." A long breath escaped her, shaky and fragile. She wiped her eyes quickly, trying to hide her tears like she had learned to do around kids who mocked her. Alex's voice softened even more. "Mia, I've seen many talented people in my life. People who train for years. People who earn millions. People who fill stadiums. But you," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "you dance with your heart, and that is something no one can take from you." Mia stared at him, stunned as if hearing these words changed something inside. But then a whisper escaped her, a truth so small and painful it nearly broke Alex. "Sometimes I think it would be easier if I just quit." He felt his fists tighten. Not at her. At the world that had allowed a child's dream to be beaten down so early. "Mia," he said, "if you quit, the world loses something beautiful." She sniffed softly. "But it's hard to be the only one who's different." Alex understood that more than she knew. He had spent his adult life surrounded by people who either wanted something from him or judged him for what he had, but rarely for who he was. He reached out gently and placed a hand over hers. "Listen to me," he said. "The world needs dancers who stand out, not dancers who blend in." She looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "Ballet isn't about looking like everyone else. It's about expressing who you are, your story, your heart, your strength." She blinked, letting his words sink in. "If you let people who don't understand you decide your worth," Alex continued, "then they win. And you lose something priceless, your dream." Mia pressed her lips together, fighting back tears again. "But how do I ignore them?" "You don't," he said. "You rise above them." Mia tilted her head, listening. "You practice harder. You dance stronger. You shine brighter. And one day, the same people who laughed at you—" Alex smiled gently. "Will clap for you." That made her laugh through her tears, a soft, startled laugh. As if hope had suddenly touched her heart. Alex squeezed her hand lightly. "You're not alone, Mia. I'm here now. And if you want, I'll help you prepare for the showcase. Every day." Her eyes widened with warmth. "Really? Really?" Mia didn't say anything at first. She simply leaned against Alex's arm, trusting, small, and brave. And as they sat together beneath the glowing evening sky, something profound happened. The billionaire who had lost his purpose found a reason to show up again, and the little girl who nearly lost her dream found someone who believed in her more than she believed in herself. The wind shifted gently, brushing through the trees as dusk settled into the park. The last few rays of sunlight painted the sky in streaks of orange and gold. Mia and Alex remained on the stage long after practice, wrapped in a comforting silence neither of them had expected, but both desperately needed. Mia's breath still came in soft puffs from dancing. Alex's heart, however, beat slower now, steadier, almost peaceful, a feeling he hadn't known in a long time. But the wind grew colder, and he noticed Mia shiver. Without thinking, he slipped off his heavy coat and draped it over her small shoulders. It nearly swallowed her whole, but she hugged it tightly, a soft smile touching her lips. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome." Alex sat beside her, his voice low. "You should stay warm." "Don't want my dance partner getting sick." She giggled. "Don't worry, Alex, I almost never get sick." Alex watched her for a moment, the way her eyes sparkled even in the dim light, how her feet tapped the ground unconsciously, as if the rhythm of the world lived inside her. Then Mia's expression turned curious. "Alex," she asked softly, "why were you sitting alone on that bench before I came? You looked lonely." He froze. Of all the questions she could have asked, that was the one he wasn't prepared for. He took a slow breath. I was thinking about someone," he said. "Someone important?" "Yes." His voice cracked, not loudly, but enough for Mia to notice. She scooted closer. "Who?" Alex swallowed hard, the ache in his chest returning like an old shadow. "My wife." He managed a small, sad smile. "She passed away a few months ago." Mia's face softened instantly. "Oh." "Alex, I'm so sorry." He didn't expect sympathy from an 8-year-old, yet her sincerity cut deeper than any adult's condolences ever had. "She used to love dancing," Alex continued, staring at the stage floor. "She would pull me into the living room every night, even when I said I was busy. She'd laugh, twirl, make me trip on the carpet. But she made it beautiful." A small tear escaped before he could stop it. He quickly wiped it away, turning slightly so Mia wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But Mia didn't look away. She didn't move back. Instead, she gently took his hand in hers, small, warm, full of the kind of comfort that didn't ask for explanations. "Do you miss her every day?" she whispered. "Every single day. My mom says when people we love become memories, those memories become our strength." Alex's breath got caught in his throat. That line, those exact words, were the phrase Elena used to repeat whenever life overwhelmed him. Mia had no idea. Yet somehow she had spoken directly into the part of him that still bled. His shoulders trembled slightly, but Mia squeezed his hand tighter. "You know," she said, "maybe I met you today because she wanted you to have someone to dance with again." Her innocence made the moment even more powerful. Child's belief could sometimes make more sense than all the logic in the world. Alex lowered his head, fighting tears he didn't want to shed in front of her, but he couldn't help it. Not tonight. Mia leaned gently against him, her tiny shoulder pressing to his side. "It's okay to be sad," she whispered. "That's what my mum says too." Alex nodded slowly. "But I don't want to be sad forever." "You won't," Mia said with gentle certainty. "Not if you keep dancing." The words struck him like sunlight breaking through clouds. He hadn't realized how much he needed this child, how much he needed her kindness, her innocence, her courage. He had lost direction, lost purpose, but Mia was quietly and unintentionally showing him a path forward. After a long silence, Mia spoke again. "Alex, do you think my mom will like you?" He blinked. "Your mom?" "Yeah, she doesn't have many friends. She works a lot, but I think she'll like you because you're kind." She smiled softly. "And you didn't tell me to go away like the other grown-ups do." Alex felt something warm tugging in his chest. "Well," he said, "I'd like to meet her." "You will," Mia replied, with a confidence only a child could have. "She picks me up soon." She pulled her knees close and rested her cheek on them. "Alex, thank you for dancing with me today." He turned toward her, his voice gentle. "No, Mia, thank you for letting me dance again." And in that quiet evening, under fading light and the whispering wind, two lonely hearts, one wounded by loss, one bruised by the world, found unexpected comfort in each other. A billionaire rediscovered hope, a little girl rediscovered courage, and neither of them realized yet. Their lives had just begun to change forever. The streetlights flickered on one by one as the evening deepened, casting a soft glow across the empty park. Alex and Mia were still talking quietly when the crunch of footsteps echoed from the path behind them. Mia's head perked up instantly. "That's Mom," she said with a grin, already standing and brushing dirt off her dress. Alex rose to his feet, suddenly more nervous than he had been in years, nervous in a way that felt strangely unfamiliar. Through the shadows, a woman emerged. Tall, elegant despite her worn-out work clothes, her eyes tired yet strong. She carried the weight of life on her shoulders, but her presence was commanding, like someone who had survived storms and still walked straight. "Mia!" she called, her voice firm but concerned. "I told you not to wander too far. Baby." Then she saw Alex. She stopped. Her protective instinct sharpened instantly as her gaze moved from her daughter to the strange man standing beside her. "Mia," she said, stepping forward quickly. "Come here." Mia ran to her and hugged her around the waist. "Mom," she said happily, "this is Alex. He's my dance partner." The woman blinked slowly, confused and wary. "You're... what?" Alex raised his hand slightly, respectful, calm. "Ma'am, I'm sorry if I worried you. She saw me sitting alone earlier and asked me to dance. She's a very persuasive young lady." Mia giggled behind her mother, but her mother didn't laugh. Not yet. She studied Alex carefully, scanning him like a mother who had been disappointed by life too many times to trust easily. He could feel her uncertainty, her need to protect her child above all else. "I see," she said quietly, though her voice carried steel. "Do you often dance with strangers' children in empty parks?" Alex felt a small stab of guilt. She had every right to question him. "No, ma'am," he answered honestly. "Today was unexpected. She didn't give me much of a choice." Mia nodded vigorously. "I asked him nicely." Her mother finally cracked a tiny smile, brief but real. "Baby, you can't just talk to strangers like that." "But he wasn't scary," Mia insisted. "He was sad." I could tell. Her mother's expression changed again, softening in a way she tried to hide. She looked at Alex once more, this time noticing the grief in his eyes that he tried so hard to mask. "You were sad?" she asked quietly. For a moment, Alex wondered if he should say the truth. People often treated him differently when they learned he had lost his wife, or when they recognized him as a billionaire. But with Mia's mother, he didn't feel the need to hide. "Yes," he said gently. "I lost my wife a few months ago. Today was the hardest day I've had in a while." Mia helped more than she knows. The woman's eyes softened with empathy she didn't expect to feel. She lowered her guard, not completely, but enough to listen. "I'm sorry," she said sincerely. "That must be painful." "It is. But your daughter reminded me how to breathe again." Mia beamed, proud of her contribution. "I told him dancing helps." Alex chuckled. Mia's mother sighed, rubbing her forehead. "Well, I'm glad she didn't cause trouble." "She didn't," Alex assured her. "She's wonderful, truly." The woman's breath caught, just slightly. Compliments about Mia always hit her heart directly, because raising her alone had been the hardest thing she'd ever done. "I'm Danielle," she finally said, extending her hand cautiously. "Danielle Carter." "Alex," he replied, shaking her hand gently. "Just Alex." She narrowed her eyes at him, not suspicious, but thoughtful, like she sensed something he wasn't saying. "So what brings you to this park at night?" she asked. Alex glanced toward the empty bench where he had first sat. "It's where my wife and I used to come. I visit sometimes. Today I didn't expect company." Danielle followed his gaze and nodded slowly. "Well," she said softly, "thank you for keeping my daughter busy. She loves dancing. She doesn't get many chances to just be a child." A shadow crossed her face quickly, but Alex caught it. Life hadn't been kind to her. Before he could respond, Mia tugged Danielle's arm. "Mom, can Alex walk us home?" she asked hopefully. "He's nice. And he gave me his coat." Danielle's eyes widened. "You're wearing a stranger's coat." "He wasn't cold," Mia defended. Alex chuckled. "She insisted I'd take it back, but she won." Danielle sighed again, this time with resignation more than fear. "You can walk with us if you want," she said slowly, looking Alex in the eyes. "But only if you stay on the sidewalk. And no funny business." Alex smiled. "Of course. I just want to make sure you both get home safe." As they began walking, Mia skipped ahead, humming softly. Behind her, Alex and Danielle walked side by side, quiet at first, but something warm and unfamiliar grew between them. Not romance, not yet, just understanding. Soft, tentative but real. Two people from worlds that should never have crossed. Yet somehow, through a little girl's bold heart, they were now walking in the same direction. And none of them knew this walk was only the beginning. The next week passed in a whirlwind of quiet evenings and soft laughter. Every day Alex returned to the park, and each evening he found Mia waiting patiently. Sometimes tapping her feet, sometimes spinning in place, always smiling despite the weariness that her school day and her mother's long hours brought. Alex brought small things to make their practice easier. Bottled water, a portable heater to keep Mia warm when the wind cut through the park, and even a few snacks that made her grin from ear to ear. But more than anything, he brought himself, presence, patience, and encouragement. "Mia, remember," he said one evening as she balanced on her tiptoes, "it's not about perfect steps. It's about how your heart moves. Follow the music inside you." She nodded vigorously. "I won't forget. Heart first, feet second." Their sessions became more than practice. They became a ritual of hope. Alex watched her transform before his eyes. The timid, unsure little girl he had met just days ago had become bold, confident, and radiant. She smiled more freely, held her head higher, and danced with a grace that seemed to stretch far beyond the worn boards of the park stage. But one afternoon, as they rested on the edge of the stage after an especially long practice, Mia's expression faltered. "Alex, what if I mess up at the showcase?" Her voice was small, tremulous. "What if I forget my steps or trip or they don't like me?" Alex looked at her carefully, taking in the worry etched across her young face. The child had the world's weight on her shoulders, and it was only because she cared so much about her dream. "Mia," he said, crouching to be at her level, "look at me." She did, eyes wide, searching his for reassurance. "Listen to me," he continued softly but firmly. "If you fall, I'll catch you. If you forget a step, I'll remind you. And if you shine, I'll be the loudest person cheering in the hall." Her face brightened slightly, but doubt lingered. "You really mean that?" "I do," he said without hesitation. "And not just because you're my dance partner. Because I've seen your heart, and it's stronger than anything I've ever met." For a moment she just stared at him, absorbing the words. Then she laughed, a nervous, excited, hopeful laugh that made Alex feel like sunlight had broken through months of winter. The next few days were spent in even more intensive practice. They perfected every spin, every pirouette, every balance. Alex was learning too, not just dance steps, but patience, attention, and the way joy could seep into the heart in unexpected ways. He felt alive again, something he hadn't experienced since losing Elena. Then one morning, as Alex was arriving for practice, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and froze. A photograph had surfaced on social media, a candid shot of him with Mia at the park, taken by an unknown passerby. The caption read, "Billionaire Alexander Grant spotted dancing with a mysterious child in the city park." Within hours, the image went viral. News outlets picked it up. Headlines screamed. Social media exploded. Comments ranged from adoration to outrage, speculations about child safety, and questions about why a billionaire was seen alone with a young girl. Alex stared at the screen, heart hammering. His carefully hidden life, his private grief, had suddenly become public. When Mia arrived at the park that evening, she noticed the tension immediately. "Alex, are you okay?" she asked, stepping closer. Yes, I'm fine," he said quickly, trying to hide his worry. "It's just news stuff. Don't worry about it." Mia frowned, tilting her head. "Wait, are you a billionaire?" Alex froze. Her words were simple, innocent, but they carried a truth that had never mattered until now. "Yes," he admitted softly. "I'm Alexander Grant, but that doesn't change anything between us. I'm still Alex, and I'm still your dance partner." Mia's eyes widened, then sparkled with understanding. "It doesn't matter," she said firmly. "You're still Alex, and you're still my dance partner. That's all that matters." Alex laughed quietly, a mix of relief and awe. The child's simplicity, her fearlessness in trusting him despite the world's complications, made him realize something profound. It wasn't his money or his reputation that mattered. It was connection, presence, and belief. For the rest of the week, they continued practicing as if nothing had changed. Alex remained by her side, helping her refine her routines, encouraging her to trust her heart, and reminding her that the showcase wasn't about perfection. It was about expression. And through every step, every spin and every stumble, Alex realized something he hadn't in months. He was no longer just a grieving man hiding in the shadows. Through Mia, he had found a purpose again, a reason to smile, to teach, to give. Mia, too, grew stronger, not only as a dancer but as a child who learned that her talent, her courage, and her heart mattered far more than what others said or thought. And as the day of the showcase approached, the bond between the billionaire and the little girl was undeniable. They were not just teacher and student. They were partners. Partners in hope, in courage, and in rediscovering the joy of life. The world might see headlines, rumors, and viral images, but on the stage of their hearts, Alex and Mia were simply two souls who had found each other, learning to dance together again, step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat. The morning of the showcase arrived like a dream painted in gold light. The hall buzzed with nervous energy, parents clutching programs, children adjusting tutus and leotards, and instructors pacing with anticipation. For most, this was just another performance. But for Mia, it was the culmination of weeks of tireless practice, courage, and belief in herself. And for Alex, it was a step into a world he had long avoided, the world of light, exposure, and human connection. They arrived together, Alex, holding Mia's hand as she skipped ahead, eyes wide with excitement and a hint of nerves. The hall was enormous, far larger than the quiet park stage where their journey had begun. Mirrors lined the walls, reflecting the bright stage lights and the anxious faces of the performers. Yet for Mia, none of it was intimidating. She had practiced tirelessly, not for applause but for herself, and for the man who had reminded her she belonged. "Are you ready, Mia?" Alex asked quietly. Mia glanced up at him, braids bouncing, determination sparkling in her eyes. "I'm ready. Let's do this." Backstage, the performers lined up. Mia stood tall, her small hands gripping the hem of her dress. Alex knelt beside her, giving her a reassuring smile. "You've got this," he whispered. "Remember what we practiced. Heart first, feet second." Mia nodded, her lips curling into a small, confident smile. The curtains opened, and Mia stepped onto the stage. The bright lights made her blink for a moment, but then she felt something familiar, the rhythm in her chest, the music of her heart. And somewhere, at the edge of the stage, Alex's presence steadied her, anchoring her courage. The first note played. Mia moved, soft, precise, and full of emotion. Every step told a story, the story of a little girl who had been underestimated, overlooked, and doubted, yet refused to give up. Every spin, every leap, every graceful tilt of her head spoke of bravery, of determination, and of joy reclaimed. Alex watched, mesmerized. He had never seen anyone dance with such honesty, such fearlessness. Every movement was raw, unpolished in the most perfect way, and yet flawless in its truth. He could see the weeks of practice, the early mornings, the chilly evenings in the park, the laughter, the mistakes, the triumphs, woven into each motion. Halfway through, Mia's foot brushed awkwardly against the edge of the stage. Time seemed to freeze for a moment. She stumbled slightly, and a gasp echoed from the audience. But she didn't falter. She glanced briefly toward the wings, and there he was, Alex, standing tall, nodding, eyes full of encouragement. That small gesture gave her everything she needed. She lifted her chin, found her balance, and spun again, this time brighter, bolder, and more radiant than before. The audience erupted in applause as Mia completed her final pose. Her chest heaved with exhilaration, but she didn't run backstage immediately. Instead, she looked out at the crowd, saw the proud faces of the parents, the teachers, and then finally her dance partner Alex, who clapped with the warmth of genuine admiration and pride. Backstage, Mia threw her arms around Alex in a hug so fierce it nearly lifted him off the ground. "We did it," she whispered excitedly. "I did it." "You did," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. "You shined. You were incredible." Tears welled in Mia's eyes, but they weren't tears of fear or doubt. They were tears of triumph. And Alex's eyes glistened too, not with sadness, but with the pure joy of witnessing someone reclaim their power, their voice, and their light. As the day wore on, parents approached Alex, thanking him for his guidance, but he didn't care about recognition. His heart belonged on that stage with Mia, having witnessed her courage, her resilience, and her brilliance. Mia's mother appeared next, embracing her daughter tightly, and then looking at Alex with gratitude that words couldn't fully express. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." Alex nodded, understanding that this moment, the culmination of their practice, trust, and friendship, was more than just a performance. It was a turning point, a reminder that even the smallest gestures of kindness and belief could change lives forever. Later that evening, as they walked out of the hall, the city lights sparkling above, Mia looked up at Alex. "Will you dance with me again tomorrow?" she asked, braids bouncing with excitement. Alex smiled, feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in years. "Of course, Mia, always." And in that quiet, magical moment, under the twinkling lights of the city, a billionaire and a little black girl had found more than just dance. They had found hope, trust, friendship, and the extraordinary power of believing in one another. The world could see the headlines, the fame, and the viral images, but they had discovered something far more valuable: the dance of life, the courage to shine, and the bond that neither time, status, nor circumstance could ever break. And so, their story didn't end with the final bow. It began anew, one heartbeat, one step, and one dance at a time.